See tonight have gone through 20 weeks of intense, grueling preparation sessions to take them from raw, unformed founder startups into polished, investable machines. So in that vein, Sean, tell us a bit about what's been going on here in this space for the last 20 weeks.
So welcome everyone, first of all. So let's see, so the first part, let's say the first 10 weeks, the teams are spending most of their time trying to build a business. So I think what a lot of people don't understand is we meet startups, they have an idea, maybe they have a prototype that works some of the time, they may even have customers, but what they don't have is a business. And so our goal in the first 10 weeks is to figure out, can they start to actually build a business? Can they get customers and ultimately, sort of get through the first 10 weeks so that they have something to talk about after 20 weeks. So it's kind of interesting because they come in and they want to learn about pitching and talking to investors, and we have to kind of say, well, hold on a second, first we have to make sure that you've built a business. And so the second half is more about, well, how do you start talking about what you've built? Ultimately getting to tonight where this sort of kicks off their fundraising process. So they won't actually be talking about fundraising. There's some rules about public discussion of raising money, but their goal will be, over the next week, most of them have 30, 40 meetings set up, and they'll start to talk with investors about what they've built.
I would say for those who are following, who are less acquainted with sort of where they are in the life cycle of startups, I mean, this is sort of, they're looking for their seed rounds from here, or Series A. Where are they and who will they be talking to in the next few weeks?
Right, so most of these companies would be considered pre-seed. So we are probably one of their first investors, and their goal is to go and raise typically $1 million. Some of them are going to raise as much as $5 million, and that would be their first sort of institutional or professional money. And yeah, I mean, our hope is that they, get through this process and then get to, typically over the next 12 to 18 months, prove out the next step. Right, so for some of them that means, we'll meet them. For some of them that means they are trying to get their first 200 customers, so go from maybe 10 to 200 customers. For others it means they've built a first version of their product and they want to fund the next version of their product. So it kind of depends on the company, but yeah, that we're kind of cheering for them to be able to prove out the next step of what they're building.
Great. So the startups you're going to see tonight are literally sourced from hundreds from around the world. There was this past summer an entire process, literally canvassing cities around the globe, looking for qualified applicants. And when you hear the name BMW Mini, of course you're going to assume that these are all going to be mobility focused. Of course, BMW has other arms for that, iVentures, the Garage, but UrbanX is different. It's not just mobility focused. So in addition to, we're going to see tonight, sort of longer distance car sharing company. We're going to see one that's focused on basically analyzing the roads, but we have way beyond that. We have surveillance balloons, and we have construction stuff. So I would say, what is the structuring purpose of UrbanX that goes beyond just the next app that will bring an autonomous car to my house?
Sure. So I think the broad concept is anything that's going to make city life better, and so people tend to think about that in sort of quite narrow ways. So often we'll tell people about cities, and they'll say, "Oh, so you work with city governments." That's correct, we do, but they're just one group. We have people that make consumer products, we have people that make sort of business-facing products, and they are roughly sort of organized into maybe 4 groups, I would say, or more, or 4 themes. So the one you mentioned obviously is mobility. In a very broad sense, there are people who work on transporting people, there are people who work on logistics, there are people that, as you mentioned, inspect the infrastructure that we use, because for example, roads are not in the best shape. And then, so mobility is one. Another is built environment. So we have people that are working on construction, housing, and so sort of the physical attributes of cities that people would expect to see. And we have a category of companies working in areas like water and waste and energy. So we'll see one energy company this evening. And then the final category is what we call sort of government services, so things that would help local governments deliver services better, more efficiently. So those are the 4 categories.
I would say, so of the ones we're going to see tonight, which sort of fall into which buckets? I'm curious, what should the audience at home look out for when they're going to see these sort of 9 startups?
Sure. So now I have to not have to.
Don't play favorites.
Don't play favorites.
But can we get a few?
So let's think
previews?
about the order. So we'll start with mobility because we talked about you sort of mentioned long distance. Upshift has figured out a new model for car ownership. So they operate in San Francisco, and they're letting people access a car and not worry about parking. They deliver the car, to you within a designated area, and people love it.
Ladies and gentlemen,
go and look at their ratings. They have literally, it's
please make your way
like 5 out of 5
to the Urban
score
X
on Yelp,
space.
which still blows my mind.
We will begin in 5 minutes.
No, sounds like
the countdown is underway, folks. We'll be starting soon. But in the meantime, beyond that, there's also not my favorite. I'm not allowed to pick favorites. But I am amazed. I mean, one of the cohort is Loon, which is actually producing patentable hardware for autonomous vehicles. So these aren't just app startups.
Right.
So real hardware.
I think this is sort of one of the interesting things is you get a very wide range of responses. So one we discussed is a service that people can go in and try. This is sort of on the other extreme. It's a sensor that's built around metal 3D printing. So you sort of, maybe wondering like, why is that interesting? So it turns out you can take a proven antenna technology that's been around for decades, but was very, very expensive to manufacture, and you can do it cheaply. And so what this team has figured out how to do is to create high-resolution radar. So if you think about autonomous vehicles, which we've discussed a few times in the past, most of autonomous vehicle technology is cameras, which are sort of cheap, and there's lots of work happening in helping them see and understand the world. And then there's Lidar, which sort of helps with range and detecting obstacles. And so that's the sort of preferred combination currently. The problem with both of those things is that in sort of poor visibility, they both fail. So just given the physics and the wavelengths associated with light and lasers, effectively you get sort of weird scattering effects in things like fog or snow. But radar doesn't have any of those issues. The problem with radar so far has been low resolution. And so what Loonwave has done is figured out how to make radar behave like LiDAR. And so they've got a lot of interest. They'll talk about some of their customers, and pretty exciting.
Yeah, I would say, I'm curious, I mean, the opposite end of the spectrum, or maybe to me the most interestingly urban, is Swiftera, which is a startup here that we're going to see tonight that is basically making balloons for aerial surveillance photography. So that basically you can sort of take closer to real-time snapshots of that, which raises a larger question of what makes urban tech urban, right? This is a category that is hard to wrap one's head around because it's not about a product feature, it's not about that. I mean, what is the definition of urban tech? What puts Loonwave with autonomous sensors in the same vein with Swiftera, with cameras, with good goods that we're seeing tonight that is doing spaces and retail networks? What collectively brings them together under the heading of urban?
Yeah, so I think we like to think that we can relate. So when we're evaluating the teams, we do what other investors would do. We think about how good is the team, how good is the idea, how big could the market be? Is this an interesting investment? How are they doing on product? Is there some evidence that this product is actually going to be useful? But one of the things that we ask that probably most investors don't ask is, what do we think will happen to cities? What impact will this company have on city life? And so if you think about something like Loonwave, yes, the robot car, autonomous vehicle is very interesting, but when you listen to the team, they're going to be talking about things like making vehicles safer. But not necessarily for the argument, but for pedestrians and cyclists. So that, in our mind, is the bridge into, this is why we care about this particular company. Swiftera is interesting because, it's an aerospace company, but their interest is when they look down at a city. Today you've got satellites. You've got kind of very large satellites with high resolution. You've got sort of an emerging category of very small satellites, and there are lots of them. The problem is that you get sort of periodic snapshots of cities, and what's interesting for Swiftera is they basically stay above a city and keep monitoring what's happening below. And so you can imagine things like disaster response, traffic, they have insurance applications. There are a lot of people who are interested in seeing cities update, not just a static satellite feed. And so what makes them, in that case, is they're looking at lots of things that are happening in cities, and providing the data to optimize them. And so that's their link. And then Good Goods is interesting. I mean, I think if you look at how retail in cities has changed, you sort of walk around, and a lot of your experience is, as you're walking down the sidewalk, is a retail environment.
Which is going away because we've seen Amazon, we've seen other effects on this, where like what makes cities is lessening because of delivery and everything else.
Yeah, and so I think what Good noticed is that you have a lot of emerging brands who figured out distribution online. Let's say Etsy, for example, and those brands are now saying, well, what we want people to be able to sort of touch and sort of try out the offerings, but it's prohibitive. There's no way that they. Hi.
Hi, how's it going?
Pretty good.
I'm being asked to crash the party.
Okay.
Ladies and gentlemen,
away.
Miriam Rohr, Program Director here at UrbanX, who's
Hi,
been
guys.
charged with working some of the startups and working on programming here.
We've been cut off?
No, not at all. We're keeping going here. Miriam,
We only have a few minutes left.
only a few minutes left here, folks, before we get Robin Chase on stage. Miriam, anything to add here on your particular take on what makes urban tech urban?
What makes urban tech urban? I mean, when I think of urban, it's not just cities. I think that's something that, to me, I always try to clarify. It's not just about this high concentration networks, but it's about the fact that we are transforming our environment to make it something that's livable for us. So whether that's in a small town in a rural area, and whether that's in a high density city like New York, those both conditions to me are urban. And in some ways, our whole Earth is urban because our air has been transformed because of us being in this planet. So in some ways, there's nothing that's not urban, which makes it challenging. But then what makes it, I guess, is when people come together is what, to me, would be defined as more urban in some ways. If nothing's urban, then people coming together, I guess, becomes more urban.
Another question. Who's here tonight, by the way? This is UrbanX Friends and Family. We had investors here this morning getting a sort of sneak preview of this, and tonight is sort of the celebration aspect of it. But who's in the room right now?
So we have, we're here in Brooklyn, so we have a big part of the ecosystem here from New York. We had investors this morning, which I don't know if you talked about, but so we definitely have more investors who couldn't make it this morning. We have some media, of course, and then the urban tech ecosystem of New York, which means both the government side, so we have people from the DOT, people from the local government of here of New York, but then fans of UrbanX, and also people who are from their mobility side or their real estate daily jobs. They're interested in what's happening in the innovation space, and they're interested in knowing what is going to transform their different industries.
I say we literally have people breaking down the doors here at UrbanX to get in for this event. We'll have a few minutes left. For those of you at home who don't know Robin Chase, it was emphasized she'll be up on stage in just a few moments. Robin is the founder of Zipcar. She's about to take us on stage.
About to begin.
Robin, after founding Zipcar, left. She's since written a book called Peers Incorporated, looking at how sort of sharing economy can really save the world. Many have tried, but only a few have succeeded. And now Robin's back with a whole sort of new principles for shared mobility, which had a whole event last week with representatives from Uber and Lyft and others on sort of how do we create a sort of shared environment. And so she'll be up on here to talk a little bit about how entrepreneurs can save the world, or at least save cities. And we'll have that up there. And yeah, I guess other further thoughts on this, because personally, and this is the thing I like about Urban Us is Urban Us is one of the few, and UrbanX as well, are one of the few accelerators that are not here to disrupt everything we know in cities, but work as part of that. And I'm curious, how do we distill that environment down? Because so much of the rhetoric around entrepreneurism is we start from first principles. Everybody else is dumb or doesn't know anything better, and we need to annihilate, do tabula rasa, and go from what's before. So how do we change that culture? Because right now, there's that moment in America, I think, where they see entrepreneurialism the attitude's starting to turn towards Silicon Valley in particular. So how do we capture that attitude back?
I mean, look, I think a few important things changed in the last few years. So a lot of the stakeholders that ordinarily would have been kind of, a little bit more suspicious, maybe, so are now really engaged. So, some of these startups have had that experience directly. You can find a head of innovation at a city who's willing to try something that 3 or 4 years ago would have been way too risky. It was totally off the table politically and just wouldn't happen. And you can now, that's fairly commonplace. I mean, that's one of the things we're trying to do is connect them. And then the same is true in other sectors like construction or real estate. I think the common theme is that almost all of these people, maybe in large part because there's a lot of sort of public discussion of exactly the principles you espouse, like they've seen what happens when there's sort of the incumbent sort of pushing back hard against innovation. And so they're trying, and that frankly makes it much easier. I mean, most of the companies you're going to hear from tonight benefit from the fact that there are people in very large sectors who are willing to meet with them and try stuff. I don't know.
I agree. Though I think there's something about UrbanX that's slightly different from other places that has to do with having a mission. Obviously, it's not a non-for-profit, but it does come from this understanding that cities should and can be more sustainable and are currently built in ways that are not scalable and should not be scalable. And so basically, taking that mission on is something that everyone should relate to. So it's not just something that is for the sake of disrupting, but it's actually something that people should be more aware of. And to the degree in which we can make a difference through investing in these companies and helping them grow, I think, and in the degree in which we can communicate that effectively as well, it's a contribution, I think, more than anything else.
Yeah, no, so that you're seeing the crowds filtering in now. We're about to get underway here, so pardon the shadows or people moving across your field of view for those of you who are watching from home. The last question I guess I want to ask before we get started is we're literally in the house that Mini built here at ADO. What also makes UrbanX different, from given the fact that one of its backers is one of the world's largest OEMs, automakers out there. How does that change it? Because in theory at least, several of these companies are going to eventually be working with BMW or are going to be feeding into the larger BMW group. So what does it mean to have an OEM? Because there'd be a lot of people who say that these are dinosaur companies. Tesla, which can't manage to make as many cars as it likes, will be out there. But yeah, how does it affect it to have BMW and having the head of brand and BMW Impact Ventures is here tonight in the house working with that? So Miriam, you've been here longer, but what's it like working with the mothership in Munich? Yeah,
I think even these mammoths, as you call them, OEMs, and I think BMW would be the first one to say that there's a need for transformation that is inevitable, and so this is one of the ways in pushing that forward and understanding what comes next for Mini and for BMW. So yeah, it is a big company, but more and more these companies also need to be transformed, number one, but also have the power to transform. So in the way in which they become more professionalized within the VC space, they have the power to support entrepreneurs, and that's something that I think has been changing. You probably have more of a say in that, and have you seen the transformation of corporate VCs entering the scene? But yeah, my 2 cents on that before we start.
Look, so I think that, I mean, I agree. I think there's thematically, it's not immediately obvious, but when we first talked to BMW and Mini, we started off what we thought was a fairly narrow, what's the next generation of mobility? Okay, so it's per mile instead of ownership. Well, that's not going to surprise anyone. What's maybe a little bit more surprising is that there's a real estate group and there's an energy services group. So all of a sudden you go from what you would assume is a car, and now you're talking about utilities. And so I think that the definition for maybe Mini in particular, but I think automotive in general, is expanding pretty quickly. I think they've mostly recognized that they have certain capabilities, they understand customers. Hi.
Hi. Ready to rock?
Let's do this.
Let's do this.
Micah Koch, director here at UrbanX on the Mini side, about to take us into the live broadcast here. Thank you for joining us, Micah.
Fun.
What should we expect tonight?
We should expect a lot of excitement, a lot of fun, some new thinking.
You want us to wrap up, don't you?
I do. Okay. It's time to rock and roll.
All right. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. We're going to take it to the live broadcast now. Thank you, Sean. Thank you, Miriam. And we'll see you in a bit.
Thanks, Greg.
Good night.
And now, from Mini Urban X, welcome Michael
Hey.
Koch.
How's everyone doing? All right, all right. How we doing tonight? My God, I'm gonna need a little bit more energy than that. How's everybody doing? Welcome to Urban X. It's time to rock. Demo day. All right. We are thrilled to have you all here. This is Demo Day. This is a celebration. Tonight you're gonna hear from 9 teams who've been working incredibly hard over the last several months on their products and services to help reimagine city life. And my job is to welcome you all here. Just by show of hands, who's been here to ADO before? Cool. Who's been to an Urban X event here before? Sweet. Great to have so many familiar faces. I can feel the love. We're also welcomed by a digital audience. We're live streaming tonight. And so we want to welcome people from all around the world who are tuning into this. I want to start by thanking all of you for coming out. I want to thank our core team. I want to thank the staff, our partners at Urban Us, Stonely and Liz and Sean and Mark. This is really a labor of love, and this is our mission. And it's really amazing to have such a talented team to work with. I want to thank our mentors, many of whom are in the audience tonight, for being part of this program and for selflessly giving their time and energy to all these teams. I want to thank our experts and residents. You know, this program is not only about the investment capital that we make in these companies, but it's about the resources. So our designer and resident, Johann Schwind, is here. Johann moved here from Germany. Yeah, a lot of love from the teams. Jonathan Gips, who was our engineer in residence. Dean DiPietro, who's our mechanical engineer in residence, and then our UX and UI team as well. They have provided some really amazing talent to these teams and have really put their shoulders to the wheel. I want to thank my team, Miriam Rohr, who is here with us, my amazing program director. Miriam also pulled together the zine, our first issue, which hopefully many of you have and will read and will take with you, which was guest edited by our urbanist in residence, Greg Lindsay, who's also here tonight. And I want to thank Greg for being an incredibly vital part of this program. And I also want to thank all of our families, I think collectively, for the sacrifice that they have made during our time in this program. I know I'm personally grateful to my wife and family, and I think I speak on behalf of everyone in extending our sincere gratitude for the long nights that we've put in on this program. Before I introduce Esther Bonnet, who's going to talk a little bit about ADO and Mini's role and vision for urban life, I just want to say, you know, this is a really interesting time when you think about cities, because cities for really forever have been crucibles of creativity, economic dynamism, cultural vibrance. And when you look around the world, it's a little bit scary, right? Cape Town is running out of water. Many of you probably took the train here tonight, so you know what the state of affairs is with our mass transit infrastructure here in New York. But we truly believe that New York actually represents a replicable model, and that if we can find solutions and grow teams who are helping to solve some of our hardest urban challenges, that has the opportunity to scale really all around the world. And that excites us. And I will tell you that we get excited about solving really hard urban problems. That is like what we are about at our essence, is helping to empower these incredible entrepreneurs who you'll hear from in just a minute to help solve some of our most difficult challenges. And that's inspiring to me, and I hope that you all will find that inspiring as well. Lastly, my last duty is to invite you all to please join the conversation. You can use the hashtag #MakeYourCity. You can shout us out on your favorite social media channel. If you're on the live stream, please participate and ask questions of teams. This is an ongoing conversation, so we're thrilled to have you here. And now I want to introduce my friend and colleague, and really the visionary and the force of nature that has helped to build this space and to create this environment, the head of Impact Ventures at BMW and the head of Business and Brand Innovation for Mini, Esther Bonnet. Thank you.
Hello, everyone. Force of nature, that's new. I think I'm going to use that. So yeah, Esther Bonnet, I run strategy and innovation at Mini. I started this space that you're in, as well as UrbanX at some point before Micah and our cherished partner UrbanUs took it over and really turned it into what it is today, which is an accelerator that's earned a reputation for putting human-centric design first, and that's churning out some of the best teams, I would say, in the city space globally these days. When I joined the company, BMW and Mini, about four and a half years ago already, I got somewhat of an open job brief. So the board that hired me really only said, we want you to help disrupt the company from the inside before it's getting disrupted from the outside. And that's all I got. I had no team. I had a desk in a very ugly corporate office. And so I started to do what you do, which is hire a kick-ass team. And since then, that's really what we've been doing. We turned into a group of very diverse people. We have journalists with us. We have architects, designers, people that started a fashion label, people from NYSERDA, from WeWork, CEO of a company that was in the finance space and quite successful there. So it's really a diverse group of people. And we started off launching our first product, which was in the energy efficiency space, a street lantern that at the time was the most efficient out there, that also charged electric vehicles, back when we were only 3 people. One of them, Johann Schwind, who is now design director here at UrbanX. And at some point, I remember we double shifted writing a vision paper for the BMW Group on autonomous mobility for 10 months, which I hope we never have to do again. But what really absorbed us as a team was the task to look at Mini and think about what we could do with the brand, right? At the beginning, we were 5 internals. We found 5 friends from different groups that still all work for us, insanely so. And we were asked, if this was a management buyout, what would you do? And we duly wrote a paper saying we would take it from a car company with diminishing relevance to being a lifestyle company, if you wish, that really does focus on human-centric design, which is what it does best. It's where it comes from. And then churn out products and services that really make a difference and that are really relevant to people. And yeah, right now, Mini has a new logo. You may have seen that. It looks different, has a new CI, a new tonality, that kind of stuff. But if you followed us a little more closely, you've seen that we've actually started to do that. We started to meddle in real estate and architecture in the beginning. We've just announced, we're really proud of that we're actually building the first Mini living compound in Shanghai, 70,000 square feet. It's really a quarter more than a building, and more of a third of it is going to be publicly accessible and open. We'll have a food market, rooftop terraces, and it won't be anything like a very gentrified, exclusive club. It'll actually be more of an open, organic village. That's what we're hoping for, and turning that into the first of many buildings globally. We've started to work with young fashion designers on Mini Fashion, turned out small capsules collections. And we built Initio, the space that you're in right now, that aims to provide crucial resources to designers and really wants to give rise to original work that wouldn't see the light of day otherwise. And I remember that from the very first discussions we had on what we were going to do at BMW, what we were going to do with Mini, we knew we wanted a space like UrbanX. We wanted a space that would help entrepreneurs that we believed in get further in what they wanted to do. And that really fits Mini. It is a quintessentially urban brand. We know that as a car company, we need to integrate much more deeply into the urban fabric if we want to be relevant in the future. And we wanted to find a way of contributing to building cities that are more efficient and more fun. And we thought that the best way that we could do that was to throw in our brightest minds in design and engineering and have them mix with the boldest entrepreneurs out there who might actually have a shot at building cities that are going to be more human-centric, humane, human-friendly, however you want to call that. Well, speaking about passion and challenging the status quo, enough of us, really, more of the real innovators, which is what you're here for today. And I'm delighted I got asked to introduce our keynote speaker tonight, Robin Chase. Robin is a transportation entrepreneur and activist. She co-founded Zipcar, which you might well know, which became the largest car-sharing company in the world, as well as Venium, a network company that mobilizes vehicle data. But she also, in 2015, published Peers Inc. to explore the future of the collaborative economy. And recently, I think that's, to me, the most impressive move, she helped get a number of transportation companies, including Uber, to sign on to 10 shared mobility principles that attempt to, and I hope I get this right, ensure that ongoing developments in technology, operational systems, ownership, and service business models lead to more livable, sustainable, and just cities. And we couldn't agree more with that vision. So welcome, Robin.
Hi, it's so nice to be here. I feel kind of thrilled that I'm on this end of the show. You guys have the really exciting hard part that I'm not having to do. So good luck. And I want to say I'm sorry I'm not going to hear you guys. I would like to have stayed, but I'm rushing out to get to DC before it gets too late. So I do want to tell you what I've been thinking about and where I think the future of transportation and cities are going to go. We're on the cusp of this amazing thing. And so here goes. So technology has been making sharing simple, and technology has made it possible to do these great innovations. So 30 seconds to make a reservation, and wireless self-service door unlock, and automatic billing, which was Zipcar. It was technology that made car sharing a really viable thing. So we now have these transit apps that let us do this mass transit multimodal options. That I was in London the other day, and you can imagine back in the day you would never take mass transit. You would take mass transit, you'd never take a bus because you never knew where to get on, where to get off, what were the connections. These transit apps have completely transformed our use of public transit and multimodal options. They start throwing those in. Uber and Lyft and the e-hailing and ride sharing. So they're doing something that's just phenomenal to me. They're proving we can have this reliable door-to-door taxis with this easy payment. And what's really dear to my heart is that they will do on-the-fly ride matching of those routes. And of course, this is only possible when you have volumes of people with their smartphones doing this GPS, really making it simple. This has been the holy grail in the transportation sector for years, never happened. So technology has been making sharing easy and viable, and sharing is good. I feel like my entire life's work has been on sharing. So car sharing. Each Zipcar and each well-used shared car is replacing 12 cars for each one of those shared cars. And this is a really robust number, and you can imagine it's had really huge impacts on dense urban areas where people have been able to shed tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of cars because of Zipcar. So that really reduces the demand for parking. So we first launched at MIT or in Cambridge. I was just talking to someone, and for sure, MIT and Harvard have not had to build parking garages because of the availability of Zipcar. Ride sharing, and I want to call it real ride sharing, not what Uber and Lyft have got us thinking it is. So real ride sharing, I'm going from an origin to a destination already, and I'm having someone else who's going on that same path. Today, when you use your own car, you only put 1.2 people on average in a car. Pathetic. If we can get more people to share those trips, this is what reduces congestion. So I just want you to hold in your mind these two things. Car sharing reduces the demand for parking, and ride sharing will reduce the cars on the road, reduces congestion. So it's these two things together that are this amazing opportunity. So what is the next technology? Self-driving cars, and I'm incredibly excited about them. And why? Because this is going to make all of these sharing benefits that we've been really expanding the markets for them and making them increasingly simple to share a car. Self-driving cars take it to another level. They're going to expand the geography in which that can happen and reduce the price. So what's really exciting to me is we are on the edge of the verge of getting a chance to have a complete do-over in cities. I have a video that you guys should watch another time. I don't have enough time here, so it's bit.ly AV Heaven, 4 minutes, that will tell you about this, the future trajectory we have, which is if we just sit around and wait for things to happen and let the status quo carry us, we're going towards hell, and I'll be describing that a little bit more. And if we're proactive and do some really great work, we can have this chance to do over cities in such an exciting way. So this is a picture. This is a picture of Changchun River in Seoul. It used to be covered by 12 lanes of traffic and an elevated highway. And that mayor decided that he was going to get rid of that traffic, get rid of that elevated highway, build this, and he did go on to become president of the country. So it really is you can win, you can succeed when you make these hard choices. It was hard for him to do it. The research from many different quadrants is saying that if we can get everyone to share cars in cities, as in if you drive yourself today, you'll go by yourself tomorrow. If you go with 3 people today, you'll go with 3 people tomorrow. All you're doing is sharing the car. We only need 30% of the cars we have in cities. If we can get you to share rides in very respectful ways, not wait for very long, not have to go far out of your path, you only need 10% of the cars. So just picture cities, this one and elsewhere, where we only need 10% of the cars. This has this huge ripple effect throughout the economies and throughout urban life, that we can repurpose all that public space. Today, 30 to 60% of space in cities is dedicated to cars. Isn't that stunning? 30 to 60% dedicated to cars. So when you take away that, you have this whole new opportunity. So if you're looking at me with like skepticism, Robin, it's not so bad now, it's not gonna go towards hell, and we're never gonna get that heaven spot ever, you're like this utopian thing, no way. I wanna say that we're already living in transport hell, right? So it's already bad. We already are spending 20% of our income on getting ourselves to work. So the first 2 hours is just paying off the car that got you to get there. We have terrible, air pollution, asthma, obesity. There's just a long litany, hours spent in congestion. So this is happening already. And why it's happening is because when people say, am I going to take a trip? The question is, what's the cost of that trip? And people are always thinking, oh, it's just the cost of gas, right? Just the cost of gas and tolls is how people are imagining it. This was a really interesting piece that Zipcar did, was when we went from personal ownership to shared ownership. Now I pay, when it's personal ownership, I'm just thinking of the marginal costs. When it's shared ownership, I pay the entire amount as I'm doing it. So I consume totally differently. So what is the cost of my trip? Every bane of transportation, I won't exaggerate, 80% of the bad things we hate about transportation are due to underpricing. And so if you think about, so underpricing is the root cause of most of our transportation problems. When you have autonomous vehicles and you take out the cost of that driver, or you take out the cost of my time, way cheaper for me to decide to take a trip. So every one of these problems that are underpricing based are going to be enormously magnified and amplified, and this is why we get to hell. I was just in Berlin last week, and a researcher from UC Davis was saying that if you use an electric car, you'll be spending 10 cents a mile will be your cost, all in, your marginal cost to move that car. And in cities, because of congestion, you're really only moving at like 15 miles an hour. And so it's $1.50 to move your car in the city. Will you ever park it? No. You'll just have it roaming around without you in it. Like, who cares? It's $1.50. Running your errands. And I want to just really emphasize this problem, because this is part of the hell. Think about when you had your smartphone and it started having the cameras, and you say, I don't use a camera every day. Like, what's the purpose? Why do I need a camera every day? And think of all the ways you're using the camera on your cell phone now. Like, there's this litany of ways. That's what's going to happen with cars. Like, what can I use a car for? It's your servant. It's your courier. It does anything you want, and then go to retail. Why would you ever pay for a warehouse outside the city? Just have those warehouses on our public streets, roaming around, waiting, giving you 15-minute delivery, whatever you want. So these real challenges in cities. So what do we do? How do we underprice? There's free air pollution, right? So here is Delhi, and I want to give equal time. Here's LA. Why is it that we get to pollute for free? There's serious costs associated with that. Free or almost on-street parking. My daughter lives in Brooklyn. It is incredible to me that people are able, and in Manhattan, that you can actually park and find a parking space, you can park for basically no price. For on-street parking, imagine if you had to buy that 120 square feet. You'd be spending $200,000 or $300,000. But your resident, you can do it for $25 a year. Free travel during peak times. This is an insanity. When we have a scarce asset, you want to be charging for people to use that scarcity. That's how we decide, that's how we prioritize who gets to go on these. And right now, free access to curbs for drop-off and pick-off and delivery. And there's some great YouTube videos about cyclists and their lanes getting killed. So we need to charge a lot more for those assets. Again, only where it's congested. If it's not congested, I'm not going to charge you for these peak things. So I've been thinking about what if we had fair user fees across all modes? And as an entrepreneur, I want you guys to just appreciate this for a minute. If we had fair user fees across all modes, when I was doing my ride-sharing company that failed, and I would say, oh, you know, I am cutting the CO2 emissions in half, and I am reducing the vehicle miles, the congestion in half. Cities don't care because there's no price on that. It's for free, so if you could reduce it in half, I don't care. So I was just in Beijing and with Mobike and OFO. They have 5 million bikes, 0 business model. They're doing phenomenal things for transportation in that city. They had a 15% reduction in passenger bus ridership. That's a really fantastic thing that people are getting out of these congested, slow, dirty buses and getting themselves around by bike. But they don't get any credit for it because the fact that you're using a 0 emission and incredibly space efficient asset has nothing to do with anything. Or fair user fees across all modes is I can drive myself in my car and during these peak times. And I can drive a big car and drive a small car. It's always for free. So I put a little number 7 here because I think I've just spent some time doing over the last year is developing this thing called shared mobility principles for livable cities. And this is number 7. And it was a tortured 7 months where we met every 2 weeks. And these are these 9 very large world NGOs that do cities and urban transportation. We did this wordsmithing. What are the things that cities need to do to produce livable cities? What was really exciting, so this is really hard work, and the idea was that there's all this great work being done. We wanted to align cities, that cities have their goals, and we can all align on these goals. What was incredible is last week, I got 15 of the world's largest new mobility companies to sign on and say they too agreed with those goals. So now we have a common narrative, common shared vision of what should happen in cities, and a common set of principles to get there. So this is an incredible alliance of these 2 stakeholders. It was a really big deal. So this is representing 75 million trips every day, these 15, and in my inbox, I've been traveling like a crazy person. I have 100 other that have come in the inbox through the website that want to be signing on. And next, I hope to sign up the OEMs. But basically, can we all agree that our future is a shared, livable, multimodal city, and here's the ways you get there. So it'll be hard work. Here are these principles. I'm not expecting you to read them. You can go look at this. But some of them are quite obvious. Plan cities and mobility together. Yeah, of course. Focus on moving people, not cars. Yep. But there's some really hard things in there, like public benefits via open data. That was a big ask of some of those companies. There's the fair user fees across all modes, which is going to be a huge ask for cities, because right now they let personal cars get away with murder. So I feel like there's this great tension in this thing. Everyone has to have something they give. And here's fair user fees across all modes. And just to go through a few of these, so number 6, transition to zero-emission vehicles. This is Beijing when I was there, and it looked like it was about to snow, but this is a 1.5 years old, and they've closed down something like 13 power plants around the edge. So it's blue sky sometimes. And so what if we encourage efficient use of space and assets? These are cities where these things are so incredibly scarce. So that's number 3. I have these nice pictures here. If you were working in transportation, this is a really famous set of triptych. So here's the space required to transport 60 people by their personal car. If they all went in a bus, how incredible. If they went by bicycle, no space. And then I found this on Twitter, and I loved it. Here is if they went by Uber, and here's if they went by autonomous car. So these things, if you don't add these principles, if you don't say fair user fees across all modes, if you don't say we're going to really go for making efficient use of space and of vehicles and of sidewalks, this is what we will end up with. And we'll end up with internal combustion engines to boot. Like, what did we gain? We did gain fewer car accidents, which mattered to me, but all the other things we didn't get. And just to emphasize this point because it's so delightful, this is 200 people in 177 cars in Seattle. And so if you're an urban planner, you say, oh my God, let's widen that sideway. So you widen the street. And if you're in Mexico City, you say, okay, let's build an elevated highway. Yeah. And here's what it looks like. 70% of the people drive in their cars alone. So this is a statistically representative sample. And just to go back, so when you're walking down the street, when you're in Manhattan, when I came through the Holland Tunnel, that's what's really going on. So we have so much space if we stop doing this behavior. So here's one more. This is Bogota. So these are all these people alone in their cars, and then there's 3 buses stuck in traffic with 30 people in them. And that is really not fair, that those guys are just matching up. So this is San Francisco Market Street. My friend was a head of sustainability for the MTA there. So in that bus lane that made a dedicated bus lane, they're pushing 60 people per city block. In the bike lane, they're getting 40 people per city block. And in the car lane, it's 12 people per city block. Just to appreciate what you're doing. And you know what? I'm going to run out of time. So the future of this, really, if you think about the future, we need to establish and we need to imagine a continuum of shared transport that goes from the metro up to taxi. And that the data points, the open data APIs are similar. It's a continuum. And I will pay the least for the metro, and I will pay the most for going by myself in my Humvee at peak times. But I will have a whole continuum, and I will be paying for the amount of space that I'm using and my tailpipe emissions. So if we get this right, if we do these foundations of zero emission vehicles, efficient use of streets, fair user fees, standard APIs, connected, integrated, when autonomous vehicles come, we're going towards heaven. So I feel like let's just address today's problems today, which is getting these foundation things right, and then we'll be great when self-driving cars come. I think I'm going to be closing this. And so for me, these kinds of changes and doing the work that you guys are doing, making our cities livable, viable. If you think 50% of the world's population are living in cities, it really matters, that quality of life, and we're going towards 70%. And we additionally don't have any time for delay because I have to talk about climate change. If you look at this graph, this is globally, is this year hotter or colder than the 20th century average? And as I look at you guys, I have a child who was born in 1987. If you were born after 1980, you have never experienced a colder than average year from a planetary perspective. Scientists, here's 2015. Here's 2016, here's 2017. We're almost at +1 degree centigrade of warming. And scientists are telling us that by 2100, with business as usual, we're going to warm the planet by 5 or 6 degrees centigrade. But if you're like me, what does it feel like to warm a planet by 5 or 6 degrees? Like, I have no idea. What does that feel like? What does it mean to warm a planet by that amount? So if you go back 20,000 years ago, it was 4.5 degrees cooler. It was the last ice age. So that's 4.5 degrees last ice age 20,000 years ago. And this is ice sheets over city skylines. Where I sleep in my bed in Boston, Massachusetts was under 1.5 kilometers of ice. Where I was this morning in Toronto was under 2 kilometers of ice. That is 4.5 degrees over 20,000 years. So what's it going to feel like to warm the planet by that amount in 80? So if you have any doubt in your mind that this is not an existential crisis, as in will people exist or not, just keep this number, this in mind, what it was before. So my mission, and I'm urging you guys to do things like this, is we have to channel this tech-driven disruption that has got the entire sector in complete turmoil. We have to channel it so we come out of this to have cities that are sustainable, livable, and just. When those tectonic plates that are in flux in this sector solidify over the next 5 to 10 years, we positively have to be at the side where we have clean, shared, multimodal cities. Because if we don't, we are already too late. And if we continue down this wrong path, it is profoundly too late. So this is a moment where you have this chance to make incredible differences. I sometimes feel like I want to do the talk about being a hero. This is the moment for everyone to be a hero. So infrastructure is destiny. And if you think about the highway system that got built and all those sprawled towns that got built in the 50s, and now we have 2/3 of Americans are beasts, and we sit in congestion all the time. So infrastructure is destiny. We have to get this transition right. Here's that highway before it got ripped down, and here's what it became. And that's what I have to say. So go, team, go. I'm ready for you guys to do great things. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Robin. Really appreciate it. And you absolutely convinced me that even though I'm on the New Jersey Turnpike often, I don't have to take choreograph or dance lessons for the next La La Land. So I'm really happy about that. Okay, so this is it. Introducing the teams right now. By the way, once these teams finish, they head off to California for meetings with over 100 investors and VCs. So we're really excited for that. So let's get started. As you'll see, these founders and their startups will not only solve the critical pain points of urban living, they'll eliminate potholes, prove to Elon Musk that the stratosphere is just as exciting as Mars, automate construction, and proactively connect city services to the immediacy of our mobility and comfort. These exciting urban tech startups will challenge and elevate existing models of interaction, whether it is how distributed power transforms real estate models, how curated retail will invigorate small business, or how we can find amazing ways to change our physical space. And of course, it wouldn't be UrbanX without some real hacks on mobility, whether it is using mobility to solve problems around mobility, eliminating the friction in providing point-of-service mobility, or simply have the best eyes possible for the future of autonomous mobility. Ladies and gentlemen, please give it up for the Cohort UrbanX Cohort 3.
What we do is help people manage and monitor roadways, and we do that with a simple cell phone and some artificial intelligence. After that, all we need is a vehicle that's collecting data on a continuous basis. As soon as the phone sees a friendly Wi-Fi, it goes up to the cloud. Our AI then looks at all of the road surface that was collected for all the features that a typical pavement engineer would look for that work for, say, the city of New York. So the user sees a multicolored map that shows them the status of their road surfaces meter by meter. The expense associated with collecting data in a large city makes it such that it's infrequently done. Because it's infrequently done, it's going to deteriorate at a lot faster rate. By virtue of having an inexpensive and efficient way to collect data about the status of that road, you're able to then extend the useful life of that road because you're going to see defects when they're small before they become big. Every time we get somebody that is working for or with a city, or a town, or a state, or a country that says, you've made our roads better, is success for us.
Hi, I'm Mark DeSantis, CEO, co-founder of Robotics. 2,000 years ago, the Romans built a 50,000-mile network of roads across Europe and Greater Europe, and those roads, some of which are still used today, like the picture of this here, the Via Appia. Probably the most famous road inspector who ever lived, basically the Curaturius Viarum, that's my best Latin, was Julius Caesar. That's how he actually got his first job, was as a road inspector. And the way they inspected roads back in ancient Rome is they used a chariot, and it would roll down the Via Appia, and they had a gentleman in a lictor who his job was to monitor the road, look at the road, make notes, and then give instructions to the maintenance crew to go fix that road. Actually, little has changed since then, but we're going to change that. So machine learning is going to change the way we monitor roads now. So when you look at a road, everybody thinks of potholes. They think of, yeah, this is the company that fixes potholes. If that's all you do, you really don't have a business, because what you're trying to do is see the road before you have potholes. When you see a pothole, that means that road probably has to be replaced and rehabbed. In the US, that runs you about $1.5 million a mile. In the US as well, about 28 to 30% of our roads are rated poor, which basically means they need to be rehabbed and replaced. If you live in San Francisco, that number is right around 50%. So what you want to do is see a road as it's just about to deteriorate, but not after the fact. Now, we see potholes, and by the way, there are far fewer potholes than you might imagine. But the trick is to see the subtle, novel features that pavement engineers are trained to look for. And they go by weird names like alligator cracks and block cracks and edge cracks and a whole bunch of other things now. And you look at the road surface, and our artificial intelligence can see those things. So how are roads inspected now? Well, the sort of better than nothing mode, and again, if you were all civil engineers, if you were all pavement engineers, you'd be applauding me right now, so nothing I'm saying is heretical. But the way it's collected is not too different, except it's not a Chariot, it's probably a Ford F-150, and 2 or 3 people in a truck drive down a road, look out the window, make some notes, get out, look out, make some notes. The problem with that, as you can imagine, is it's highly subjective, and you're trying to get accurate data about the status of the road. And what you're relying on is basically people relying on a number of people and their opinion about what the status of that road is. So that's one challenge. The other challenge is, in some cases, it's even dangerous. Imagine you're on a highway and you're stepped out of a truck and your job is to run across the road and make notes about what you see. There are alternatives, very expensive alternatives, with trucks kitted out with all sorts of fancy gear. Interestingly, even that data is manually inspected. So the challenge in that solution, by the way, will run you about $500 to $700 a mile. Really out of the price range of even a mid-sized city, and certainly out of even a large city's ability to use it with any frequency that matters. So what you want is to be able to have a very accurate and precise way to inspect roads and make it very inexpensive. And by doing that, you can then inspect roads more effectively and more frequently. So our technology was spun out of Carnegie Mellon University. We're actually headquartered in Pittsburgh. And one of our chief scientists, Christoph Mertz over there, and our CTO, Ben Schmidt over here, developed the technology that effectively allows a cell phone to become a data collection device. And our artificial intelligence, once it gets up into the cloud, works its magic. So it looks at every meter of road, looking for all the features that a typical pavement engineer is trained to look for. Very simple implementation, as the video showed. We use a standard cell phone. Once the data is collected on the cell phone, it goes up to the cloud, and a map is produced, a color-coded map similar to what you see there. That color-coded map is used by our customers, and those would be basically public works departments from little towns to big cities, states, and we're going to be deploying this in 2 other countries. In fact, we have 21 customers in 5 states across the United States. And the way they use it is to deploy crews to fix the roads, also to do capital planning, and a variety of other things. Now, I ask all of our customers, would they be willing to publish this map? So I've asked there is one mayor who is contemplating publishing this map, but generally I get pushback on that request. We collect the data, and it's a very simple process. So Jenks, Oklahoma wants to use our system. An intern gets on a plane, flies there, drives around, collect the data, good to go. That's not a long-term solution. Really, the long-term solution is some things we're experimenting with right now. So a poll, how many vehicles are on the road every day? On every road, you can imagine postal vehicles, garbage trucks, street sweepers, all those things are wonderful data collection platforms. So anyone here from Los Angeles knows where Laverne, California is? Laverne, California, we mapped the entire city using 2 street sweepers and 2 cell phones, passively collected. So really the challenge here is to passively collect the data. There will be a day when this technology is embedded in cars, and the car and the road will then have a symbiotic relationship, where the sensing capability of the vehicle is gathering data to tell it the status of the road, and that very information could be used to improve the road. We sell our product to, as I say, public works departments. We do have some commercial customers as well, people who manage parking lots and other things. But effectively, we charge $75 a mile, and then they have access to that map for a year. We charge other services. The earlier visual I showed you, the machine learning visual, I made an allusion to a sign. Our customers are interesting. They're not satisfied. They like the road service. Now they want us to see a bunch of other stuff, and we're charging for that. So if they want us to see street lights and manhole covers and a whole bunch of stuff on that roadway, it's a busy thing, and we can see it and we can assess it. That's what allows us to charge more down the road. Like I said, we've got 21 customers right now. We're adding them in a pretty good clip. We got a great team. This isn't our first rodeo. This is actually, we've done this before, venture-backed tech-based machine learning companies. So about half that team actually has worked together with me in prior companies. And I appreciate your interest and look forward to chatting with you at the break. Thank you.
We are a construction tech company set out to change the process on construction sites. We view construction sites as a manufacturing floor, and we believe it should be a controllable manufacturing process. So we have IoT sensors that are actually mounted on the crane. We collect the data, we analyze it, and we give it back as actions to the right people at the right time on the right task.
If you look at any other industry that made a jump in productivity, it's when people started getting access to the data and took decisions and improved the process using the data.
Our first starting point is the crane, and you could see the smart hook or hook eye behind us. But we will go beyond the crane, and what we see as a vision is Versatile Natures as a platform that is the brain behind everything that's working on the construction site. Wow, what a crowd. I come from a family of builders, so discussion around the dinner table often sounds like a construction debate. One evening, the day my brother lost a worker on site, we talked about the problems. And it's the same problems that cause accidents, that also cause projects to be delayed and over budget. My partner started drafting a solution on a Post-it. And that note got one of Israel's top general contractors interested. They supported our on-site development and proof of concept. Now they're a paying customer. Hi, I'm Merav Oren, and I'm the CEO and proud co-founder of Versatile Natures. Not done just yet. Let's talk about the crane. It's a strategic point on the construction site and responsible for most of the critical workflows, so we use it to gather data and learn what's happening on construction sites. You could say we turn it into a control tower, just like at a busy airport. And we use the data to learn the process and compare what's happening with the construction plan and start giving directions. Like Waze only giving directions to people on construction sites to stay on plan and navigate through the unexpected events that are impacting their day, their week, and their projects. But we do more than that. When the wrong steel is delivered to the 20th floor, trust me, you don't use Amazon to send it back. So we just prevent it from happening. And when we predict a safety problem like a load at risk, we alert the foreman and the crane operator directly. So we cut through the noise. Unlike most construction technologies, we don't ask them to record and report. We literally collect the data over their heads with a 6-second installation process. And by communicating directly on tools they already know and use, like messaging or radio, we eliminate the need to use and adopt new screens. Though only a fraction of our capabilities were presented on our successful implementation, we proved our potential to double their margins, speed up construction, and increase safety. We're now launching in over 15 sites. We're in conversation with the largest general contractors in the US. And in November, we announced a partnership with Autodesk, one of the largest design, planning, construction software providers. And we bootstrapped through revenue, and now backed by urban and industry leaders, as well as the Israeli Innovation Authority. We'll only be working with a select group of contractors or customers in the next couple of months. But once they're hooked, yeah, thank you. Then we launch in full. But these guys have anything between 15 and 1,400 sites, so about $15 million worth of annual revenue as we grow within their sites first. And if we look at the US overall, this is a $3 billion annual revenue or $21 billion worldwide for our first product only. Our core technology team, comes from Intel. And it's representing an industry that has been using sensors and machine learning for years. And they have mastered the highest productivity and control over manufacturing. That is our vision for construction. Your phones and cars are built in a factory in a perfect sequence of manufacturing processes. If we want cities to be built faster and cheaper, we need to bring these processes into construction. With Versatile Natures, this will be the way cities are built. Thank you.
We provide space as a service model for brands. We provide staffing, analytics, and space. We're basically building the future of the shared economy for retail.
What we really offer is the service for brands to be able to just be really hands-off and trust us with storytelling, branding, and we curate, merchandise, staff it for all the brands. All they really have to do is give us the inventory of the products they want to sell, and we take care of all the retail operations for them. And we have a platform on our website that they can then just log in and check the sales as they come through, and we capture customer insights so then they can use all that information to continue to grow their business. So it's really an additional sales channel for the brands, and it's really great brand exposure for them.
We've worked with some other vendor markets that are kind of similar to this, but this one, you know, the curation quality is really high, and they've been really flexible as well, which is super helpful for us because they're, you know, everything is handcrafted. So that kind of flexibility, especially when it comes to inventory, is great for us.
The short-term success is really how can we liven our streets so that it is something that citizens and customers care about. It's not just another big chain or retailer.
Hi everyone, my name is Rosa Ng and I'm the co-founder of Good Goods. We offer space as a service to emerging brands in a collaborative retail model in urban cities. It is estimated that $1 billion worth of storefronts sit empty per year, and average commercial leases are 5 to 10 years long. Landlords are having a really hard time finding tenants to commit to these terms, and also they're looking for third-party operators that understand tenants' needs to fulfill these spaces. People don't often recognize that the online sales currently is just 10% of the annual retail spend. It is harder than ever to grow a brand organically due to the oversaturated market. Emerging brands want physical locations to use for product exposure and customer interactions. And one of the common ways to do that is through wholesale distribution. But trade shows are really expensive, and it can take seasons before they can land their first account. To solve the pain points for emerging brands and landlords, we provide a tech-enabled retail solution. This is a picture of our Soho storefront on Prince Street. We were next to the Apple store and Marc Jacobs. This store used to be the old Club Monaco men's store, but it sat empty for 2 years before our activations. We featured over 70 designers in this store during the 4 months that we were in operation. We weren't just a store. We had events like engaging panel discussions and designer workshop as part of our in-store experience. Designer came to us for our technology-enabled retail services. Specifically, our members got access to our technology platform, which gave them customer insights from our sales team, real-time sales transaction, and in-store data analytics. Traditional retailers do not offer this type of data and this level of insights. Our business model relies on our relationship with real estate property owners and our brand curation. For our services, designers pay us a monthly fee to participate in our store, and we take a small commission for every sale we make. We leverage our relationship with property owners to obtain flexible lease terms and also high foot traffic locations. We are only a small part of what we view as a $6 billion serviceable market. We are eager to open up 10 stores in 3 cities, servicing at least 240 brands in our next 18-month roadmap. One of the key pillars to our growth strategy is through partnerships. We work with brand platforms like the Etsy and Shopify to grow our designer database. And again, partnering with brokers and developers to get access to these prime real estates and design one-of-a-kind in-store experiences with our strategic partners like IDEO. Relative to our competitors, we believe we are unique in the way we provide technology-enabled retail services combined with flexible ways of accessing these spaces to create high-touch and sophisticated in-store experiences. This is our team. I come from a fashion and retail background, been in the industry for 7 years. I started my first business, Young and Able, 4 years ago, supporting emerging brands through seasonal pop-up shops. My co-founder, Eric, is a licensed architect, and his prior experiences focused on urban innovation and real estate. Rachel Ginsberg leads our flagship brand partnership, and Michael Steinberg helps us develop our technology platform. Our vision is really to bring multi-brand environment to cultivate brand diversity for a vibrant urban neighborhood. Thank you so much.
I think cities mean different things to different people. Some people look at cities and think about mobility. Some people look at cities and think about people and their lifestyle in cities. At Blueprint Power, we love to look at buildings and envision, flows of clean energy that are not just helping power buildings, but also creating a new intelligent layer for cities. My co-founders, Nick and Claire, we've all worked together for several years, designing what were, at the time, cutting-edge energy systems, often called microgrids. So we designed 100% renewably powered local grids for islands in the Caribbean, for large homes in Northern California, and even thinking about grids that can just power a new neighborhood in a city. So we've been working on these problems for years, and we're excited to say that we can actually turn cutting-edge projects into an actual business. Transforming a set of buildings into a power plant involves bringing distributed energy on site, layering those distributed energy technologies with more intelligence and software, and then finding a place to actually monetize that distributed energy, either by selling it to the people who use the building or perhaps even other energy marketplaces that might exist. Success for Blueprint Power is being able to walk through several different cities around the world, knowing that we've helped build clean energy power plants there.
Hi everyone, I'm Robin Beavers and I'm the CEO of Blueprint Power. We're here to connect buildings to energy markets. In particular, we're focusing on one marketplace inefficiency. On the supply side, we have buildings. The good news is buildings are starting to adopt more on-site generation, such as solar, batteries, and cogen. But often those on-site generators sit idle because either the building's not occupied or they're not managed properly. On the other side, on the demand side, we have the grid. Now, the grid is normally very reliable and very calm, but lately it's been very stressed. This is because conventional power plants are retiring, and new types of sources such as renewables or electric vehicles are connecting. This adds some stress and strain to the grid, so it needs new types of supply and better types of supply. And in fact, it's even creating new financial incentives to attract that. Now, it's very hard to connect these two things. Oh, excuse me, forgot to switch my slide. But it is very hard to connect these two things. And that's because on the supply side, they're scattered across many buildings owned by many different people, and it's very hard to aggregate and coordinate them as one system. Also, they're unreliable. This is by the nature of the fuel they're using. Also, they often need to supply the building they're located in, so they're not available to sell elsewhere. And then finally, to say that energy markets are complicated is an understatement. It's very difficult to navigate how power is sold, especially if it's not your core business. So Blueprint Power is here to help make this market by focusing on the customer and the product simultaneously. On the customer side, we're building regional real estate clubs by offering financial incentives to large building owners who will actually convene their portfolios together to create that optimal mix of supply and availability. Then we'll use machine learning to decide where and when to sell that available supply to maximize revenue back for our building owners. As we send those new cash flows back to the buildings, we'll keep a little bit for ourselves, and we'll have access to great transaction and performance data to allow us to recommend even more systems that can go out there and participate in the markets. This is actually opening huge energy marketplaces to real estate owners that have never been accessible before. To put it in perspective, just one of the markets in the US is the sale of electricity to buildings. It represents $400 billion of revenue a year. Con Ed here in New York sells $8 billion of electricity to buildings a year. Looking from a more bottoms-up perspective, applying Blueprint's unit economics, we estimate that just 50% of the commercial buildings in New York could generate $2 billion a year from all of the available marketplaces today using their on-site energy. This is obviously getting some traction with real estate owners since it's a huge new source of revenue. And we're starting to build clubs in New York and actually Miami. In New York, we're in discussions with building owners representing over 100 buildings across the 5 boroughs. And in Miami, we're talking to large developers who are actually responding to the recent extreme weather events and want fuel-free backup power in hopes that they can eventually make their own new marketplace. Our team has a unique blend of real estate, tech, and energy. I actually started my career at Google, where I worked directly for the co-founders and then launched Google's first green energy strategy team. I then served as an executive in both the real estate and energy industries. Claire Wu, upon completing her PhD, went immediately to Bosch and built their global energy storage strategy from scratch before energy storage was a known idea or even industry. And then Nick Squire spent many years at Boeing designing mission-critical and cybersecurity systems for space shuttles, satellites, and microgrids. And we've been building cutting-edge systems for years. On the left, you can see the Googleplex solar installation, which I was overseeing over 10 years ago, which at the time was the largest corporate solar installation in the country. And on the right is actually a project that my co-founders and I worked on together, which was helping Richard Branson transition his Necker Island from 100% diesel power over to solar and batteries. After designing and building things for many years, we're thrilled to say that we can now transition what's a largely project-by-project industry into a true scalable platform. And our message to building owners is that you should actually own this platform. In addition to it returning good economics back to your buildings, there's actually value in scaling this across cities. And that is something that they should be excited about. Because if they don't build it, someone else will, whether it's utilities or other large tech firms. But if they do build it, then they have the opportunity to become one of the most profitable future utilities. Thank you very much.
With Hosta Labs, we're able to create 3D models, smart 3D models of residences and commercial spaces using only regular pictures.
You would get an intelligent model, intelligent being that the wall knows it's a wall, and it's connected to the floor, and it's windows, and it's got dimensions, and it's in materials. So it's all that metadata that's in that model that differentiates it from other types of regular 3D models.
First, you take out your phone, pull it up, open up the app, take a picture, it uploads to our server, and the wall starts showing up. Next, the furniture starts to materialize. And once the furniture and the shell is complete, you have your 3D model. You can start interacting with it. You can turn it around. You can start selecting pieces, replace them, change the colors, change the light, pretty much anything you can think of doing with a 3D model. Success for Hosta Labs is that in the future, you have a model of your home that you can share with your contractor, your insurance company, or any other service provider. Essentially, think of it as the digital replicate of your home.
Hi, I'm Rachel. I'm co-founder and CTO of Hosta, and we help you renovate with confidence. So here's the problem. Renovating at home sucks. If you've ever done one, you know what I mean. If you haven't done a renovation, then you're lucky, because we're about to make it not suck, and you'll never know the frustrations of the old way, because the old way is often it goes over budget, it's delayed for months, and sometimes you and your family have been displaced for so long that you feel like refugees from your own home. So we're bringing the power of professional tools that were only available to large construction companies to homeowners. What you can do is then see your future renovation, translate that into an appropriate budget, and communicate with your contractor. You're much more empowered because you now can create an appropriate budget, see cost trade-offs, and explore different scenarios. And we know that by doing these three things, we eliminate the source of frustration, budget overruns, and delays. So the foundation of creating a 3D model today, if you want to do one of these, it would take lots of time, it's expensive, and requires special skills that many of the design build companies that dominate the highly fragmented home renovation market don't have. Now, if you take out your smartphone, take a picture of space, and you can get a 3D model. That 3D model then serves as a foundation that would allow you to explore and combine different options from our strategic partners, from small faucets, large appliances, cabinet makers, electrical and plumbing services, and then get an appropriate budget. So with this kind of power, you can imagine that we're pretty well poised to completely change the way home renovations are done. And the current way is that it would take lots of investment from contractors to do this, right? It would take weeks or months and lots of expenses. We can reduce that time to minutes. We're flipping the script because now you know what you want before engaging with a contractor for estimates. So how is this actually possible? This is building upon my PhD work at the intersection of architecture and artificial intelligence at MIT, of converting images into 3D models. At Hosta, we've developed proprietary algorithms to scalably deliver 3D models. And these models are pretty smart because they include windows and walls and measurements. This is not just CAD or point clouds. The home renovation market is $220 billion. We know that $20 billion is wasted due to unnecessary costs and delays. We also know that $30 billion of projects go unrealized because it's just such a frustrating and stressful, fearful experience that people just don't jump in. And the waste is usually because homeowners they change their minds midway when a construction happens. We can reduce the amount of waste that occurs, and we can capture the value of those projects that go unrealized. But first, we're starting with kitchens and baths. We're talking to several contractors, and including being in the advanced stages of conversations with a large international brand. So can you imagine there's multiple ways to capture and create value here for everyone? We know that there are several very well-funded companies that have proven that contractors will pay $10 to $55 for a qualified lead, where a qualified lead means you fill out a survey, 2 simple questions. Well, we can increase the value of that lead tremendously because homeowners now know what they want before engaging with the contractor, and they also have a budget, they have a project plan, right? But we're not going to compete with the companies that are listed here. We're going to co-create value with them by allowing their contractors and customers to easily connect with one another. We've done lots of great work in the past 6 months, including our current plan is expanding our strategic partnerships. And as of last Friday, we are ready to do pilot testing with them. So you already know me. Both Jose and I have experience in startups, consulting, and corporate companies, apart from our 4 MIT degrees. Our advisors are they're leaders in their fields. They are serial entrepreneurs that have successfully raised, exited, and continually to advise multi-million-dollar valuation companies. Our team, they're awesome over there. In the last 3 months, we've proven that we can recruit and create an effective team specializing in artificial intelligence and machine learning. We're pretty lucky that we have access to a wide network of the top schools in AI, design, and architecture, just through our extended network alone. So join us. We're always recruiting members. We're going to be over there at the booth down towards back. And help us help families renovate with confidence around the world. Thanks.
At Swiftera, we do real-time imagery of cities. We operate and develop a high-altitude platform. This is in between satellites and drones, and that can deliver freshly updated imagery and maps of the cities.
Recent developments showed how non-resilient our cities are, and that there is a need of data to solve these problems, and that's what we're trying to achieve with our startup.
Everyone in the team was working in different spacecraft projects, both in industry and academia. And we know that satellites cannot revisit a place very often. You can get pictures from a week or from a few days, and you cannot really get continuous images of a city. And we wanted to really bridge that gap, and we started working on this idea and finding was the right tech to do this.
Satellite technology in general, it existed for years, for half a century already. But there are certain needs that are easier covered with smaller and more flexible platforms and get this data cheaper and faster.
Like the stratosphere, the new final frontier, this is the space waiting to be exploited. It's not space, there are thousands of satellites there. And if we are the first to get there, we will reap the benefits.
My name is Rima. I'm the CEO of Swiftera, the high-altitude imaging company that is going to render satellite imaging obsolete. Or as Mark would say, we are on a mission to convince Elon Musk that stratosphere is sexy. Now, over the past decade, billions has been invested in companies imaging the Earth. This has been done to increase the quality of the images that we get from space and also to increase the update rates that we get from space. Now, you may ask how satellite companies are using all this money. Now, there are 2 ways to approach this problem. First is to build big, gigantic satellites that are very capable. They provide high resolutions, but because these are gigantic spacecraft and you need to put them very high in space, they're very expensive, so you cannot have many of those, and you end up having very low update rates of the images that you get from them. Now, on the other spectrum, there are companies that are putting smaller spacecraft that are not as capable as the big ones, but they're cheaper, so you can have many of those, and you can have a high update rates. Now, we're ending up with a problem that there is no combined solution that can provide timely, high resolution, and continuously updated imagery of cities. If you consider all the things that fly, there are things that fly very low. There are drones and planes, we know about them. And there are the things that we don't see, they are very far, satellites. Now, in between these two worlds, there is this huge space that is underutilized. And if actually it is utilized, it can solve this problem. That's exactly what Swiftera does. So we deploy agile, autonomous airships that hover over the cities, providing continuous view of the city. Now, one airship is enough for one city, as opposed to thousands and thousands of satellites that would need to be launched to provide this continuous view. Now, the airship provides really unprecedented performance. It is persistent. We are 700 times faster than any satellite company. It is affordable because for one reason, we don't need expensive rockets to launch us in space. Now, despite the fact that the rockets are reusable, believe me, they are still a huge bottleneck for the satellites. Now, and we are more performing because we are closer to the ground. We can see better. So we have twice better resolution than the best satellite resolution available right now. And because we're closer, we don't need third parties to launch us. We can actually start testing our technology using weather balloons. That's exactly what we did over the couple of months in the accelerator. And this image that you can see on my slide, we made this like a couple of weeks ago. And you can see a bigger version of it right there. Now, these are not just tests. These images allow us to tap into the geospatial data analytics market that is measured to be 18 billion. For this, we already have 4 LOIs in place with projected value of 9 million with such companies as Orbital Insight. Now, Orbital Insight is using our imagery to produce insights for their end customers in business intelligence, insurance, and across other sectors. The long-term goal in terms of market is much bigger. It's measured to be 120 billion across many sectors, again, including the insurance and transportation and others. So as I said, we start selling our raw images to geospatial data analytics companies, but the long-term goal for us is to be able to process our own images, to build up data pipeline, and provide these insights ourselves to the end customer. This will allow us to raise our revenues from 2.3 million to 7 million per city per year. If we consider all our competitors, you can roughly group them in 2 groups. There are companies that can see big things, like buildings, but they can see them very frequently, well, considerably frequently, like every day. And there are companies that can see smaller things like cars, but they can see them infrequently, like every week or month. Now, Swiftera combines these 2 performances into one single platform and actually improves them, right? So we can provide an updated image that sees many more things, like bikes and benches, every couple of minutes. But we are still conveniently limited in our resolution not to be able to see faces. We are privacy aware. Our biggest advantage is our rocket science team. We make things fly. We worked in European Space Agency, in French Space Agency. We are backed by such prominent organizations as International Astronautical Federation and others. While to the general public, we are known as Swiftera, a small circle of people in aviation authorities and air traffic controllers like to call us Team 12439 Alfa Romeo. Don't ask me. So we launched already a couple of times, and we're working with the FAA. We launched in Pennsylvania, North Carolina. We launched in Spain. So we're working in the US and in Europe. And we are excited to tell more and welcome you in our booth. And you can actually see the guy that actually flew, and it is on this image right there. So you're welcome to come. Thank you.
At Upshift, we provide an easy, dependable solution for people in cities to go anywhere. Whenever you need a car, you just send us a text and we'll deliver you a new clean Prius. And when you come back, we'll valet park and refuel it for you. Well, the idea for Upshift really came out of personal necessity. I live in San Francisco, and like a lot of people in cities, I don't own a car. Rideshare apps solve the problem of getting around town easily, but going out of the city is still an expensive hassle. So with the tap of the button, you can now escape the city. Upwards of 60% of land in cities is taken up by parked cars, and they're only used less than 5% of the time. In San Francisco, street parking alone takes up a space the size of Golden Gate Park. By providing an alternative to owning a car, we're saving people time and money while unlocking parking space to turn into parks. So first of all, wow, amazing to come after Robin Chase. She is a total inspiration to Upshift, and we are a signatory to the shared mobility principles she mentioned. So just wanted to put that out there, super exciting. So we are building a car subscription model that makes it super easy to leave the city without needing to own a car. This is Shilpi. She lives in San Francisco. She rides transit, takes ride share, bike share to get around within the city, but she still leases a car for occasional business trips and to get out of town on the weekends. And she's paying about $800 a month just for the lease, the parking, and the insurance. And that lease is coming up, and she's wondering what else she could do, because that's crazy. So the solution she finds is a car subscription service. It's flexible. She only pays for what she uses. She can cancel or pause anytime. Whenever she needs a car, she just sends us a text message, and a new clean Prius shows up at her door. She takes it wherever she wants to. When she's done, we valet park it and clean it and refuel it for her. Our pricing model is simple. So it's $259 a month for 4 days of use. If you go over that, it's $65 a day. And then it's unlimited rollover thereafter. And so Shilpi saves $500 a month, and she never has to deal with mechanics and circling for parking, trying to find insurance, all these other hassles of ownership. We've been getting solid 5-star reviews since we launched 18 months ago. People love the convenience and how easy it is compared to owning a car. And our vision is really basically what Robin put out there, to make it so that people, we can unlock all of this real estate that's sitting underneath these parked cars that are sitting there 95% of the time, and turn that space into parks and bike lanes and sidewalks and other public uses, and to reduce our CO2 emissions and improve our air quality. Since we launched our subscription model in the last few months, we've increased our signups by about 7x. And we're getting some of our members using our service upwards of 3 times a week. And we've built a very simple SMS-based booking and account management platform that integrates with about a dozen different APIs. That was something that we couldn't even do a few years ago. And we're now building out fleet management and logistics software for the deliveries and integrating telematics into all of our Priuses so that we can remotely lock and unlock the cars, track them, and disable the ignition. We've spent years developing a custom mileage-based insurance product with top partners like Marsh. And we have commercial fleet financing that can scale nationally with huge partners like Penske Motor Group and Westlake. We see a $1 billion opportunity just here in the US, growing to a $7.5 billion opportunity just for car subscriptions. And that's only about 1/3 of the global market that we see. We see about a $400 million in annual revenues business just for Upshift, with 34 markets and about 1.5 million members. And our unique operations model is to centrally store and deliver these cars that are all identical. So that really cuts our parking costs in half. It cuts our cuts our parking costs 7 times, cuts our fleet requirements in half, and our delivery times are also cut in half because we deliver by bicycle. And we can get anywhere within this zone in 20 minutes. And we can scale this across the Bay Area, but also across the nation in different cities with no regulatory barriers in any market. We make about $1,900 per car per month, and about $300 of that is profit. Our team, I've been in this industry for 19 years. I started a bike share program in 1999 and worked on a shared folding electric scooter project at MIT while I was doing my master's in city planning there. My co-founder has 2 master's degrees, has consulted for the World Bank, and is an expert at customer service and understanding our user needs and running our operations really seamlessly. And we have a lead engineer with 5 years experience with a Carleton computer science degree. And we have really friendly concierge who are part of our team. They are not contractors. This, we think, enables us to have lower churn rates and also just a really fantastic customer experience for our members. And we all see autonomous vehicles as the future. And there are a lot of things that are still not going to be automated in that future. We still need to clean, park, insure, maintain, repair, replace cars. And someone needs to operate that fleet. We see delivery as a pathway to build that fleet and build out the operations and technology and business models to actually manage that fleet. So thanks so much for your time. I'm super excited to talk to you. I'll be in the other room at the end of the hall, and come find me. I'd love to talk to you.
At QSIT, we have created a platform based on proprietary machine learning algorithms that work with thousands of data sources to understand how to make our cities better.
Some of the things that make cities great can quickly become a problem. Let's take the rideshare, for example. They are only useful if you have bikes available. With QSIT, we are able to calculate real-time and future demand of bikes to better match the offer and demand and to optimize the rebalancing of bikes.
Bike-share programs are just the beginning. Our software can also analyze the emotions of people and pair this data with readily available information about their surroundings and the state of the world to give real estate developers and city planners the necessary information to create happier spaces.
Success for QSIT is seamless transportation, optimized city services for billions of people, and insights for businesses that allow them to surprise and delight their customers.
Hi, I'm Raphaël Cherrier. I'm the CEO of QSIT for Quantified Cities, and we use artificial intelligence to improve well-being in cities. During the past years, a lot of intelligence has been devoted to understand human behavior online and to improve user experience on the internet. As a result, people spend more and more time online. They communicate online, they shop online, and in the end, they live online. On the opposite, much less effort has been applied to quantify human behavior in the real world. And cities are lagging behind in terms of efficiency, sustainability, and livability. Why? Because it's much more complex. Online, everything is observable. Every page view, every click. Our goal is to improve the user experience of cities to make sure people enjoy the real world. We quantify the real world, and we use artificial intelligence to understand the link between urban design and human behaviors and feelings. We provide a software platform that enables local government and private companies to optimize their services and city planners to build happier spaces. Place de la Nation is a major square in Paris. It looks very nice, but it doesn't work. In fact, almost nobody goes in the center. Why? Because you need to cross 8 lanes of cars to get there. We're working with the city of Paris on redesigning Place de la Nation to improve the well-being of pedestrians. We combine hundreds of sources of data to quantify the city infrastructure in great details. For example, we know the position of every tree, but also its perimeter, its age, the type of tree, even the date it was planted. And we use all that in our models. We also add lots of dynamic data, like traffic, like noise, GPS traces, air pollution. It's impossible for any human to make sense of that much data. But our algorithms are able to find how each city element impact each human emotion. And we provide a platform to urban planners on which they can run various scenarios and get new insights. For example, they use it to find the best place to build a children's playground. We're very happy to announce today that we are starting a similar project here in Brooklyn with Downtown Brooklyn Partnership. And the best part, it will be the first of its kind in the United States. Yeah, you can applaud it. The core city model that we are developing is like the OS on your phone. And on top of that, we are building dedicated applications that enable our customer to improve bike sharing rebalancing in Paris, parking management in Amsterdam, road safety on the highways in the south of France, and comfort in public spaces. We have competitors, for example, IBM, who operate on different verticals, and startups who are most of the time specialized on one vertical. The problem is that this approach doesn't work. Because cities are complex and interacting systems. It means that every phenomenon impacts every other one. For example, parking impacts traffic. Traffic impacts road safety and the level of stress of pedestrians. So we pull off the data that we get about every phenomena such that every new project that we do improves every other project. And that's why we build global model of cities. Since our commercial launch 1 month ago, we've had a great traction. We went from 2 to 15 customers in the last 12 months. Today we are at $300K in annual recurring revenue, and it's doubling every quarter. We're on track to do $2.5 million this year. And it's a huge market. In the US alone, it's a $200 billion market, out of which we expect to appropriate $1.6 billion. We are a diverse team of 15 city lovers and AI geeks. You guessed it, based in France. 5 PhDs, 12 amazing engineers from 5 different countries, fluent together in 6 different languages, and we've been working together for 3 years. And today, we're coming to this program to accelerate and expand in the United States. Thank you.
We're developing vision and sensor technology for autonomous applications. We are primarily focused right now on building an automotive radar sensor for autonomous vehicles.
One of our co-founders, who's also the CTO, Hao, he actually has been the industry leader in 3D printing and also millimeter wave radar technology for couple of decades. As a professor at University of Arizona, one of his group that he led was able to develop this very unique radar antenna, which is a Lunenburg-based lens. And as folks came together to think about commercialization opportunities, and this is where we identify autonomous vehicle as a place to start.
What our sensor is able to do is have high performance capabilities where it can see farther and greater distances and have more spatial awareness than other sensors on the market today. Most of the action at Loonwave takes place in Tucson, Arizona at our lab. I think the most interesting thing that you'll see is called the anechoic chamber, and it's basically where we test our sensor, and that's how we know what the capabilities of the technology are. But what we're working on now is the next version of that prototype where we can take it out of the lab and put it on a car for a car manufacturer or a supplier to test.
Good evening. I know for some of you, I'm probably between you and your favorite alcoholic beverage. So I really appreciate your patience. I'm John Shin, CEO of Loonwave. So I'm here to really tell you a story of how Loonwave is going to make autonomous vehicles safe and affordable through our next generation radar sensors. So as many of you know, driving is dangerous. In 2016, car accidents in the United States alone have resulted in thousands of deaths and millions of serious injuries, along with billions of dollars worth of property damages. So to help people live a safer life, every major automaker has a roadmap in place today to release self-driving cars in the next few years. This year, we're going to see many vehicles without drivers and cars with significant amount of driver assistant capabilities. Today, these cars rely on sensors like Lidar and camera to really see the world around them, but they have a problem. During bad weather, this is what camera and Lidar see. The problem is physics. Now, radar, on the other hand, will work during bad weather. The challenge, though, is today's radar sensors simply cannot see enough in detail. So this is where Loon comes in. Our team has found a solution to overcome the shortcomings of traditional radar sensor. The result is better than Lidar at a fraction of the cost, but most importantly, it works during adverse weather conditions. So having validated our alpha product in 2017, major automotive players like BMW, Audi, North America Lighting, Uber, just to name a few, have already provided written agreements to purchase our sensor in 2018 and beyond. As of today, we have demand for 250,000 units. In addition, we're also expecting to receive about $1 million in non-dilutive funding as part of the NSF SBIR program. So looking at our technology, so at the center or heart of our Loon sensor solution is a patented process to cheaply 3D print a high-frequency Lunenburg antenna that no other company in the world has been able to fabricate. In addition to our hardware, our proprietary software also have the ability to allow cars to avoid signal interference from sensors on the road. So when you put those together, so as the hardware and software product features, Loon sensor is going to enable every single vehicle on the road, long distance and all around vision, but most importantly, consistent performance across all weather conditions. We believe our technology can replace Lidar and will work in conjunction with camera, as camera has the ability to interpret signage on the road. As we ramp up our production in 2019, we'll be able to sell our sensor at $800 per unit and enjoy a very healthy margin. With about 10 million self-driving cars to be manufactured in 2023, if each of them is equipped with 2 of our sensors at $800 per unit, we're looking at a $16 billion market opportunity. And based on our current conversations with customers, we're pretty confident we'll be able to capture at least 5% of that market share. Loon, I know everyone says this, obviously we love our teams, but our team is incredibly strong. So folks from our technical team are truly industry leaders in radar and 3D printing technology. Our CTO and co-founder came out of MIT's Lincoln Lab and built missile defense systems at Raytheon. Our business team comes out of Intel Capital and Liberty Mutual with extensive experience in bringing new product to market and creating strategic partnerships with auto OEMs. So hopefully, as evidence of our strong customer pipeline, this team knows how to partner with OEM, and we know what it takes to bring a product into market, especially a rapidly evolving market. So in conclusion, we continue to have these conversations in the boardrooms of OEMs and tier ones. And the message to us is pretty clear and consistent. The best sensor wins. Really doesn't matter what type of technology it is. So at Loon, we're 3D printing today to enable a safe and affordable mobility. So thank you for your time.
All right, cool. So that is it. One last round of applause for all of the teams in Cohort 3. Thank you. Yeah, that's right. Thank you. Thank you. It's awesome. Yes, you deserve it. That was amazing. Okay, so now you are all welcome. Head back out into the atrium. We have music, we have drinks, and we look forward to seeing you all back here. May 10th is when we launch Cohort 4. Stay connected with these people. The best way to do that is follow us. Sign up for our newsletter, urbanx.com. We'll see you on social media, #MakeYourCity. Thank you for coming out. We love you.